Hello, it's Brigit here. I'm one of the Silverfit Pilates instructors, and today we are going to do a session focusing on our lower back health. Okay, so if you've got any tightness or niggles in that department, this session is the one for you. Okay, so just give yourself a little shake out, and we're going to start off standing, and we're going to have our feet parallel and hip width apart. Okay, now you might find this really uncomfortable, so just adjust to do your best here. So we're going to line up the hip bones with the centre of the knees and the centre of the feet, and then when you've got that, you're going to place your hands on your hips and just roll the shoulders out a couple of times. Release any tension from the shoulders. Okay, and now we're here. You're just going to roll onto the outer edges and then the inner edges of your feet. Outer and inner, and just feel the ground beneath your feet, really checking in. And then just find that middle point there, okay? So you want to have the weight evenly distributed on your feet. And just for a little assessment, if we kind of collapse in, we buckle in, you'll notice that the strength just kind of goes from the body. So let's press the feet in, slightly draw up through the insteps, and here you'll notice we start to activate. There's tone in the thighs, the core, the glutes, and the shoulders. And from here, we're just going to release the arms down. Now you want to keep your arms energized, so we'll try not to be all floppy with the hands. So keep those energized, and we're just going to float forwards and backwards. And I'll go from the side so you can see here. So you want to imagine that you've swallowed a pole, forwards and backwards. We're not lifting the toes, we're not lifting the heels, and you're trying to not, and I'll just change angle again, you're trying to not hold tension in your shoulders. If you're feeling brave here, you can close your eyes. Notice these waistline muscles triggering, okay, so this is what we want to feel, the waistline muscles, the deep core abdominals triggering. Start to just engage those pelvic floor muscles, and they will all help you balance and keep this movement under control. Okay, I've closed my eyes, but if you've got vertigo, you might prefer to not close your eyes. We're just going to home in on that and hold it still. Give yourself a little shake, and then we're going to roll down. So we'll start off with our knees soft. So we try not to hyperextend the knees, which is sort of locking back into the knees. Try and keep a little softness. That way we're using our muscles more. So a little bit of softness in the knees. Those feet are well grounded. Lift your toes, place your toes back on the floor, and we inhale to prepare. And as we exhale, tuck your chin, tuck your chin, tuck your chin. Follow through. We're rolling down vertebra by vertebra. Now you might hold it here, you might not want to come lower than that, that's fine. Or keep going. If you're tight or you've got any sciatica or anything like that, make sure your knees are getting softer the more you fold. Otherwise it starts to jam. Now when you're in this forwards fold, or you're as far as you're going, perhaps you want to have a little sway from side to side. Decompressing the spine. Soften the knees more if you need to. I do feel like I need to today. And then we'll hold it still and just wobble and blobble your head and shoulders around, releasing any tension. Press your feet down, engage your core, tuck your tail and roll up. And if you've got back niggles, and if this is the first attempt, you might want to walk your hands up your thighs, because this will just give you a little bit of extra support in your back. Okay. Now, you can repeat that again, and I'm going to just show you how you could do it against the wall. Okay, so a wall is a great prop to have in this exercise because it gives you that reference point. So for me, I'm just standing with my feet hip width apart, and my feet are about 6 inches away from the wall. Some people will need to have their feet further away, some people can manage closer, but we start off with a point and then we can adjust it. Okay, so just got enough wall here to do the exercise. So we inhale, and as we exhale, we're tucking the chin, we're tucking the chin, we're tucking the chin. Feel the way that spine is against the wall, and you roll down. We're articulating. If your feet are too close to the wall, you might feel like you're going to topple over, in which case stand up again and start again.
Okay, you don't need to go all the way down. And then we're going to inhale, and as you exhale, initiate it with a tilt of the pelvis, tilting that pelvis, and try to get every point of your vertebra in contact with the wall, okay, even that gappy bit at the bottom. And then once your thoracic spine makes contact, then your natural curve can come back into play. We'll do that one more time, so you're really using that wall as a reference. Just going to shimmy my feet a little bit further away from the wall because I'll get a better go at it. So inhale, and as you exhale, tuck your chin. Start to feel that lift, that rising of the energy. We're creating the vacuum here in the belly. And then we roll down. And as you're rolling down, strong in the legs, strong in the core. Try not to flop down. So it's not about just kind of touching your toes. There's a lot more to it than that. If you're very limber, you can touch your toes without doing any work. So we want to be working here. Okay, and then roll back up. Initiate it by that initial scoop, tuck your tail, and the rest follows through. So you're restacking the spine. And try and come back just a little bit taller than the last time. Okay, and then just roll out the shoulders. Now, if you want to do more of those, press the pause button and do more. And to advance it, you would just, you'd take your backside away from the wall and you would try and roll down and roll up without your bum actually touching the wall. Okay, so you could try that in your own time. Okay, so we're going to come down onto the floor. So we'll just make our way onto hands and knees. And then from here, we're going to start off with some good old cat-cow stretches. And this is a lovely stretch, but we want to be able to do it with conviction and just really feel your way into the movement, because it's very easy to do a slightly disconnected cat-cow stretch. So we want to get into that spine, exhale, arch the upper back towards the ceiling, inhale, your head is up, your tail, you can have your tail up or keep it in neutral, but the more important thing here is that you create space in between the vertebra. So try not to finish it off with a collapse and a clunk. Keep that space, keep that energy. Maybe press the knuckles of your fingers and the tops of your feet onto the mat. So really earth in, feel the earth. And if you kind of use the ground, you add that extra dimension, that extra element. I've done cat-cow stretches for probably 40 odd years, and there's always something new to be had, always. So try not to go onto autopilot. And then we're in the tabletop position, and we're going to sit back on our heels, or as close to your heels as you can get, for a child's pose. Good old stretch here. So the cat-cow stretch, the one that we've just been doing, is great for the lower spine, but we need to keep that space. That's the space in the vertebra. Okay, and then we're floating up again onto our hands and knees. And when I say float, rather than kind of just, we don't want to come up in a big clunky movement where we're dumping all the weight into our wrists, which is what I'm doing now. So we want to kind of create energy here, and that helps you to be really light in your body. Okay, so the more we can engage in the big muscle groups, the less stress we're putting down onto the smaller muscle groups and the joints like the elbows and the wrists. Okay, so use your powerful muscles to do the powerful work. So from our hands and knees, we're going to just open out, right arm up towards the ceiling. Try not to reverse your bum back as you're doing it. Keep this lovely connection unraveling, and then as you exhale, scoop through. Use that exhale to scoop through, and then inhale as you press yourself up. Think of the movement coming from your centre, your belly, your trunk, your shoulder, your elbow, and then finally, if you're going there, all the way to your hands. Okay, and then through you go again. So it's a centre initiated movement from the inside out. Just do it and feel it. Okay, and then release. Place your hands back on the floor. We'll do a quick child's pose to reset, and then we're back onto our hands and knees again. And I'll just swivel around so that you can see it from this side as well. Now, try not to sickle your feet. This is what sickly feet look like. You want to try and keep your feet in a straight line.
A lot of us sickle just because it feels quite nice. Okay, it's easier, of course. Okay, so find your setup, you're pressing your shins, you're pressing your feet, you're pressing the knuckles of your fingers. If you've got really stiff ankles and you can't press your shins, your feet might look like this, and you might find it's a bit knobbly on your knees, in which case you need to put, maybe put some extra padding underneath your knees. But you want to get a nice purchase on the floor. So we're going to open out. This is the inhale, and then exhale as you scoop through. Keep your hips on top of the knees, so you want to keep right on top of yourself, avoid this motion, okay, and then you open out again. That's your inhale, exhale, and then inhale. Be careful of wrists as well, so if your wrists are starting to hurt, it might be because your shoulders are tight, there's an interaction between shoulders and wrists. Or it might be just because your wrists are not used to this loading, okay? But whatever, you can always reset, shake out your wrists, give your wrists a stretch, okay? And now we're going to sit back in our child's pose. Good old stretch there. And this is a lovely stretch for the lower back as well. Okay, so we're going to come onto our backs. We're going to do ribcage arms exercise. Now, it's exactly what it sounds like. We are working our arms whilst really focusing on our ribs, okay? So what can happen a lot, but what we're trying to avoid here is that when we move the arms, that we don't kind of separate into two halves of the body with the ribs popping out and the lower back getting compressed. We want to keep those ribs under control, keep that strong trunk position, and then the arm action actually becomes a lot more powerful because you've got the rest of the back and the trunk involved. And also we're not going to injure our lower back whilst we're about it. So we've got our hips and our feet and our knees are all on train tracks or double yellow lines. So try and avoid, and if you've got a really bad back, you can rest the knees together. But if you're all right, have the train tracks. You can imagine you've got a balloon in between your thighs, and that way you create a slight squeeze. And then from here, as we exhale, with your spine in neutral or a light imprint, you're reaching up, you're reaching up. I'm going to place my spare hand at the bottom of my ribs, reaching up and over. Now keep the energy in the arm. Try not to let the arm go. Keep the energy in the arm and keep those ribs contained so that you can't really tell where the ribs and the abdominals, they're sort of blending into each other. So you don't want to feel like the ribs are popping out. Inhale, we come back. And then exhale, over we go again. So your spine could be neutral, or you might need to have a light imprint. You can let the shoulders rise a little bit, but you don't want them popping up towards your ears, okay? You want a modicum of space between your shoulders and your ears, but allow for some natural movement here, okay? The body was designed to be very mobile around the shoulders. But we don't want things popping up and down uncontrollably. We want to control it. And then release. Shake that arm out. We're going to swap sides. So your right hand is on your belly, where your belly meets your ribs. Maybe exhale. Just feel the tightening of the ribs knitting together, weaving into those abdominals. And this is our kind of powerhouse, okay? We want to keep that in lockdown. Sorry about the phrase there. Now, core muscles, pelvic floor muscles are all on, and as you exhale, we're reaching all the way to the fingertips. Try not to let your wrists go floppy. And this is the key bit here. This is where it really starts, where the arm goes out of sight, because this is where the arm can start to collapse and the trunk can start to pop. So we've got to be extra vigilant and then come back. Okay, and then repeat. And one more. We want to move mindfully through this. Mindfully, so we're really registering what's happening in the body here. Okay, and release. Good. Shake out the arms. Now, we're going to now work 2 arms together. And I'm just going to grab a little bit of a cushion because this is where it can get quite scrunchy around the neck for me and for quite a few of us as well. So just raising my head is going to work wonders here. Okay, so I don't need to raise it very much. It depends on what your upper back and neck look like. If you've got a bit of a sort of like a little bit of kyphosis, a little hunchback, then you're going to need to raise your head higher. Okay, I just need a little bit of a raise, and it stops this. We want to stop the old scrunching in the neck. So we're going to use both arms. So we're going to start off. We can have start off actually with our arms down by our sides, and we inhale, and as you exhale, up and over. So just having that cushion behind my head is really helping me focus on my neck alignment here, which is important. It's not about the big moves and flinging your legs left, right and centre. We want to keep the spine aligned when we're doing this basic focus work, and then it's got a better chance of being well aligned when we're starting to do bigger moves. Exhale as the arms come up and over. Watch it at this point where it's very tempting just to let everything collapse. That's the point where it gets difficult, where it gets tricky. That's the important bit. That's where you have the sort of magic moments there. Okay, now repeat that again, and I'm just going to show you how you might want to use a bit of a prop here. Now, I have got, this is my yoga strap. You could use a dog's lead or a dressing gown cord or a long sock. And we've just got the band just at about shoulder width. And we're doing the same exercise with the arms, but with a band. And what that does is it provides a little bit of focus. It stops your arms kind of working independently. And you'll see that if the band goes a little bit lax, a little bit saggy, that's because your arms or your back have disengaged somewhat. So, you know, it really helps with the focus and the alignment. It's not essential, but it might make your experience even better. We're just going to make that our last. And then release. Tuck your knees into your chest, have a rock from side to side. Okay, so we're going to do spinal twist now. I'll just get rid of this. Okay, so spinal twist. Now I might keep my cushion. So for the more rehab level or the basic level, it's really nice to keep your feet on the floor, so we're not kind of putting too much of a load on it. And the important thing with the twists, we're not doing a stretch as such, we're doing an exercise. So we want to keep the core muscles engaged, so we're not just flopping from side to side. You can have your arms down as breaks, or you can have them in crucifix, or you can have a capital E shape, which is lovely for stretching out the pectorals, but it will give you more to work with. And then from here, we inhale and the knees go over to one side. Now, look, my top foot has lifted off the floor, because if it stayed on the floor, I'm not getting the right action. I'm getting a sort of one thigh sliding down the other. So keep the inside bits of your ankles touching and your knees touching. And you feel that there's a force going that way, but more equally important, there's a force going that way. So we've got this double action. Yeah, we've got the double action, the strong trajectory line. Exhale as you come back, and then inhale as you go over to the other side. So this is the kind of the cornerstone. This is important, this double action. It's in the twist, it's called torsion. Okay, so we've got this torsion rather than, and I'll show you a dodgy, where your weight is just kind of sucking you from left to right, where there's no muscles working. So we want to get those muscles on. And you might think, oh, I'm not going very far, but that doesn't matter, because as you get stronger, you will be able to go further. If you can just, we can all get our knees to the floor. Well, maybe not all, but most of us can get our knees to the floor. But we're not necessarily using the muscles, okay? Now, if you want to just start to work a little bit harder, you can bring your legs like so. And again, you want to keep your knees together and your inner ankles together and your shoulders on the floor and your ribs. So it's getting harder here to control and to maintain. And as it's getting harder, you know, we have to work harder. So if you can't control it, just come back to, just modify it back and then try again with the harder version, you know, next time, or just relax and try again, okay? So we want to kind of build up progressively and sensibly rather than just going for gold straight away and injuring ourselves. Great for the spine, okay, when done properly. Now, if you do want to go for gold, this would be the more advanced level here. So we have the legs up, have your heels together and your toes slightly fanning out. So you've got a sort of ballet foot, and here we go. Now, go easy with this, it's turbocharged, okay. Keep the legs energized, keep sort of pressing into the balls of the feet so your abdominals can respond to that and activate. It's hard. If it's too hard, come back to one of the other levels. Okay, and we're done with that. We're going to tuck the knees into the chest and we're going to roll into a sitting position. We're going to do some clams. We're going to do a couple of variations of the clam, and the clams are great for strengthening the glute med, which helps to protect the lower back. Now, the clams are only as good as the way that we do them, okay? So if we do them in a sort of slightly dodgy way, they're not going to really be that useful, but they're not that difficult, okay? So basically here, we want to work the glute med, the side bum muscles, okay? And as your top hand, you can have it on your hips or you can have it here for balance. And as you exhale, you're going to lift the knee, and you can use your hand actually for resistance, and you'll feel that there's more effort required if you use your hand and press down. And then as you inhale, if you imagine you're pushing down on a sort of a coffee plunger, just to create that extra resistance. Okay, now we want to feel these muscles, the glute med. You can place your hand there just to feel that they're triggering. We also want to work our core abdominals. These are your stabilizer muscles here. Okay, so you want to keep your trunk still. Now, as we're doing this, I'm just going to show you the sort of the don't. Okay, so rocking and rolling through your trunk. Okay, so we don't want to be doing that. We want to keep the trunk nice and stable. So we're working from, it's very Pilates' feeling, where we're working the moving parts from a still anchor point. Feel these muscles as well. I've lost count, but let's say that was, let's do one more. I reckon that's about 8. Okay, now we're going to progress it. So we're progressing it by lifting the whole leg. Look at my sickly foot. I'm just going to straighten out my foot there. Okay, so that's the don't. The sickled foot. Okay, so we don't want to be sickling the foot. You want to keep your foot in line with your shin. There we go. Now we're still working the glute med. And if you feel like you've lost it, there might be, you might be slightly like that, a little bit knock-kneed. Okay, so if you're a little bit knock-kneed, it's likely to kind of find its way into your hip flexor. So keep this slight, ever such a tiny little slight rotation in the hip where your knee is a tiny bit higher than the foot by a micro amount. And that way, oh, I can super duper feel it in my glute med now. It's here, okay, and we're just going to hold the leg here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Really hit the spot for me there. So if you, we're going to stretch, but we'll do the other side first. If you're feeling that it's just too much, you can release, okay? So relax and release, and then give it a shake and then jump back into it, because you don't want to lose form as we go on, because the body, we have this thing called muscle memory, so the body will absorb what you're doing to it. And if we do lots of sort of dodgy versions of the exercise, next time we go to do the exercise, that's what the body has remembered. So stop, quit whilst you're ahead. Okay, so we're on the other side. So inhale, and as you exhale, there we go, and we've got this, it's like your back suspender belt is being tightened. And then inhale, and it's like the coffee plunger or a thick spring. That's 2. Now just coming back into this area. So if you feel that you're kind of flopping onto the mat, you can get this sense of pressing your side ribs onto the mat, or you can have your head in your hand and pressing your side ribs into the mat, and your waistline will start to activate again. Now, don't be at all surprised if one side feels very different to the other. So this is my, we tend to have a good side and a slightly dodgy side, and this is definitely my dodgy side. So whereas my other one, I was quite smooth in the movement and I could do it and everything seemed to be firing more or less in the right places. With this one, I've got to really focus. I can feel something wanting to happen here, so I've got to really focus. So the movement won't necessarily be handed to you on a plate. Sometimes we've got to just work to overwrite the dodgy movements that have happened because of all our decades of habits. The body will work the path of least resistance. Okay, so let's build to that next variation. So we're here. Again, watch out for the sickly foot. You can flex your foot even. If you flex your foot, it's less likely to sickle. Otherwise, make sure it's in line with your shin. We want that slight torque, okay, that slight rotation. Now, this being my dodgy side, I'm really, did you see that rock there? I kind of slightly put that on, but only a bit. So I'm having to work really hard to not rock everywhere, because this side is a million times harder than the other side, which means I have to work it. And we'll hold it here and then release. It's incredible how asymmetric we can get. Okay, so we're going to roll over onto our fronts, and we're going to do back extension. So extensions are when we're behind ourselves. Okay, so flexion is when we're like that, forwards flexion. Extension is when we're working the back body. The knee is the only exception to that. Okay, so with a knee, that's actually flexion. Okay, but everything else, when we're working behind us, that's when we're in extension. Now, we're going to have our arms down by our sides like so, and we're going to press the tops of the feet into the mat. And when you press your tops of your feet and also your hip bones and your pubic bone, the legs will energise. Your knees will actually float off the mat, which is good. That's what we want. Okay, draw your abdominals in, and you're going to imagine there's a P underneath your nose, and you're rolling that P forwards, 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 forwards. And when you can't go any further forwards, you will start to float off. You start to hover. And you can press your forearms lightly into the mat. No scrunching in the shoulders. Keep it nice and open in your shoulders. And then release back down. And then off you go again. Exhale. Rolling that P forwards. We want length and we want space in the vertebra. Length and space. Get this sense that you're pressing the top of your ribs into a damp flannel. I meant the bottom of the ribs, sorry. The bottom of the ribs into a damp flannel. Shoulders come back and down, and then release. Now we're going to do that again. So you're rolling that P forwards, we're getting space, we're getting length, we're getting traction, pressing down in your feet and your hip bones. Now if you're okay here, and your back feels all right, you can float the forearms off the floor, and if you're still good, just open into a crucifix. Okay, so each of these arm things just adds a little bit of extra load. And if you're good here, you can lift your legs. Think about lifting your thighs. Make sure you're not feeling pinching in your lower back. So we're going into it bit by bit, just so you can keep an eye on things. And then release. Place your forehead on your hands and just shake your hips from side to side. So nice and relaxed now. And then we're going to come into a child's pose. And this time we're going to stretch in a few different directions. So we're in the child's pose. You can walk your fingertips forwards just to get a really lovely juicy stretch. And then pick up your left hand and place it on top of your right. So we're getting a really nice side body stretch. To deepen into that stretch, you might want to overreach with your top hand. You might want to shift your hips a bit further in the opposite direction. Other things you can do, you're really breathing into your side ribs, so really breathing into your left ribs here. Fanning them out, getting more expansion, getting into all those chambers. We'll do that one more time. Nice big inhalation. Long, slow exhalation, like you're blowing out a candle. And then bring your left hand across and your right hand on top of the left. And this breathing work is great, just for kind of, you can calm down the nervous system, you can increase your lung capacity and your lung health, your mobility also in your thoracic area. So as we age, one of the first components of our mobility that kind of suffers in a way or goes is the side flexion, the side bending ability in the thoracic area, and this will really help. So opening and closing the ribs, just getting that extra mobility. Okay, and then place your hands back down, and then we're going to come over onto our backs, and we'll do a little roll down just to transition onto our backs. So we can have you can press the tops of your feet onto the mat, but not everyone can do that. So if you can't do that, dig in with your heels so that you kind of feel that you're grounded. We want to feel connected. We also want to kind of activate our back legs in a way to not put extra pressure on the quads and the hip flexors. We want these muscles relaxed. Okay, I'm going to dig my heels in, and we're going to reach up, and we're going to take a slow motion dive forwards. And as you do this, feel that your tilt has already started to initiate your scoop in those abs. And then you can hold on to your thighs if you want to. As we walk down, walk the hands down the thighs, we're rolling down, we're rolling down, we're rolling down, we're rolling down. Lovely. Okay, and then take a full body stretch. Full body yawn. And then we're coming back to bent knees, head in hands. Okay, so with our head in our hands, we're going to do a few curls, and we're going to keep our spine in the neutral position. So we've just got the tiniest little curve here, like you could put a pencil under your lower back. Okay, so we're not gapping, it's the neutral, natural curve of the spine. And as you exhale, we're going to lengthen, lengthen, lengthen through the upper portion of the spine, space as always, and that length becomes height. So the same principle as when we're lying on our fronts, it's that same principle. And then inhale. So with these exercises, there's a lot of patterns. We'll repeat that, we're curling up, we're trying to keep our spine in neutral. So we're not coming up so high here, because if we did, the spine would lose its neutral and start to imprint. So we're feeling everything's sucking in, we've got that vacuum effect, rather than pressing the lower back into the mat. We're going to do that again, neutral spine. And we're going to hold it at the top. So you want to feel like your waistline is smaller. Tightening around the belt. We're zipping up, very underneath the surface. And then release. Okay, and now we're going to do a sort of more of a boot camp, old school curl. So we are going to imprint, okay? So we're not keeping our neutral spine now, we're going to imprint. So we inhale, and as you exhale, we're curling up. And you'll feel that you can curl up higher. It's a lot more in the six pack. So it's abdominals rather than core, the first one that we did. where we kept our spine in neutral, was a lot more of the kind of the whole cylinder of the core, and then we release. Good. Have your arms down by your side and then just move your head from side to side. So what you learn, what principles you might learn in one exercise, you can apply to another. And also just be mindful that when things start to get harder, that you still need to keep all the basic principles in place. Otherwise it can get a little bit chaotic. Okay, and then we're back to centre here. And we're going to bring both legs up. Okay, now I'm going to show you a harder version and an easier version. So for the harder version, we can have our pelvis and our hand wedge, and we're just going to circle the legs. Okay, so both legs, you're circling them together and apart, and you're going to do 4 in one direction and 4 in the other direction. But if that's a little bit too much for you, cradle the knees and we're like that. And then 4 in one direction and 4 in the other direction. And then when you release, just place your feet on the floor. And we're going to do some tilts and some bridges. And so the tilts, the tilt is the initiation of the bridge, okay? So if you don't want to come into the full bridge, just stick with tilts. So we are in our assume the position. We've got the hips, the knees and the feet on track. I'm just going to have a quick check in with my feet. Sometimes they feel like they're in the right place, but one's going off miles. Okay, so we're here. And then spine is in neutral. And as we exhale, we're just going to roll the pelvis under. Now we're rolling it. We're lengthening the spine. We're rolling the pelvis under. And we want to feel this kind of vacuum start to come into play here. So it's very internal. Now be mindful of your neck, because it's not a big beefy movement. We don't need to be kind of a flurry of clenching and bracing. It's very internal. It's a very sort of, we're gathering. All is calm with the world here. And inhale, release. Try not to clench your bum cheeks when you're doing these tilts, because you don't need to. The lightest of engagements maybe. Okay, now we're going to start to peel off. So we're just peeling off a tiny little bit. And now the glutes will come into play, but again, you don't need to go for a big old clench. You're going to keep it commensurate with the movement that you're doing. So we're just peeling off a little bit. We don't need to be bracing every single thing in the body here. It's a sort of no hassle. We're working, but we're not full of tension at this juncture. Okay, and then just keep rolling up. And we're nudging up a little bit higher each time. And again, we did some roll downs at the start of the session. Think of that articulation through the spine. We're in a completely different position here, but that articulation is still a thing. I'm going to come up now into the bridge. There you go. All the way into the bridge. So we've nudged up into it. So, we can notice if we've got any hot spots. Do we need to kind of modify back down? Can you work through them? All of this, your body is constantly giving you feedback. So we constantly need to respond. Listen to your body. Okay, and then we roll back down. Now you can repeat that twice more. Okay, but if you want to work a little bit harder, we're going to do a one-legged version. So the right leg comes up in the air, or you could do that if you prefer, but I'm going to do it with my right leg up in the air. Now, we do need to engage the muscles more, because this is much stronger, much more powerful. So we will be working bigger muscle groups here. So to come up, you're going to press that left foot, and you're going to direct your right foot towards the ceiling. And if you want to work even harder, you can try lowering the leg. That's super hard. Place the foot back on the floor. And now we roll back down. So the harder way we are working, the more, it's not more complicated, that move, but it's tougher. The tougher the move, from a pure brute strength point of view, then we're going to have to engage more muscles. So we want our underneath the surface muscles and our superficial muscles all working together, all cooperating. We're on the other side now, so we've got our left foot up in the air, and we just kind of get ready to go, get your head round it. We're going to press into that foot, we're going to direct that foot up into the ceiling, so we've got the kind of the opposition forces going on. It helps us. Inhale, exhale, that's it. And now if you want to, you can lower your leg, check your hips aren't going saggy, and the leg comes up, and then place your foot back down, and then we roll back down. Well done, everyone. Okay, so I hope you found your level there. We're going to cradle the kneecaps, and we're just going to circle the knees again, a couple of times in one direction, a couple of times in the other direction. We're going to have our feet on the floor now, the feet are wide, okay, and we're going to have our knees knocking together. So we're coming into the sort of relaxing phase of the sesh, and then we're going to float our arms overhead, and then just let your knees flop over to the left. So if your back is okay, you can really flop, okay? So just forget everything you've just learnt in Pilates, now we're stretching, okay? So you can just flop, 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 but not if you've got a pinching in the back. So if you've got a pinching in the back, you're going to have to keep a modicum of engagement, so hold back if you need to. What's quite nice is creating a fist and just placing it in your hip crease, and that will give you a bit of support, okay, if the floor feels like it's too far away. We're going to come over to the other side and just let yourself flop or not. Another thing that you can do is, if you've got a thick cushion or a ball or anything else that fits the bill, you can just kind of pop that underneath your thigh, okay? And that way you'll be able to just kind of relax in the movement without worrying about it pulling on your lower back or wherever else. Okay, so we don't need loads and loads of props, but the odd little placed prop can work wonders. So, okay, so we're here, and now we're going to stretch out the hamstrings. So we want to feel the stretch in the heft of the muscle. Okay, so tight hamstrings are, if they are tight, they will pull, and they could potentially give you back problems. But sometimes you might feel like you've got a tight hamstring, and it's not, it's something more like sciatica or something more neurological. So we don't want to be really hammering the stretch in the hamstrings, okay, and especially if you've been doing it for ages and they still feel tight. So I do quite a lot of running, so my hamstrings are always quite tight. I like to keep a little bit of movement. Okay, this feels just safer for me, and it feels like I'm getting a stretch without overstretching. This is how my body works, and it's more limber when I'm not doing so much running, and it's less limber when I am. So I've just got to kind of adjust my stretches accordingly. I'm going to swap it over. This side is even tighter. But a friend of mine she thought she had tight hamstrings, and actually she was stretching and stretching and stretching, and it turned out to be sciatica with hers, and the stretching was actually aggravating it. So it's always just worth, again, if you've been doing loads of stretches for ages and it's not helping, it could be something else. But what we've done today, all that strengthening work, will all be really useful, because quite often where there's a tightness, it indicates a weakness. That sounds really serious, didn't it? Okay, and shake it out, arms and legs up to the ceiling, and we're going to give everything a shake, and I'm going to stretch out the glutes. So we'll cross our right leg over our left thigh. Now, as a matter of course, it's quite nice just to flex the foot here, okay? It just gives you a little bit of protection. It activates the front muscles of the leg, just slight protection for the knee there. Good practice. And you can have a little rock, that's quite nice. You can grab behind your thigh and still have a little rock. Now I'm going to get my cushion back again because it feels nicer for my neck. Also, it's kind of giving me signals that it's time to relax. Okay, I'm going to come back to centre. I'm just going to give it a final little squeeze. such a nice stretch for the glutes, this, and you can control it because we're lying on our backs, we've got no body weight going through it. You can control it, you can use your elbow maybe to push against your inner thigh, and your inner thigh pushes back on the elbow, and that's going to give some strength, give a little bit of welly to the stretch. We'll shake that out, we'll swap it over, and then the other side. This is nice, this little rocking is nice. It gives you the lymph system, stimulates the lymphatic system, which is our sort of auxiliary circulatory system. It's good for sort of flushing out the toxins, helping with our recovery. So if you've been for a long walk or something like that, it's very nice. It helps the body to recover, so it's quicker for next time. Okay, and then you can add in your glute stretch. Also, it's very relaxing, great for calming down the old nervous system, this gentle rocking, super relaxing. That can only be a good thing. Okay, and then we'll come back to centre and we'll give it a final little squeeze. So we should be feeling this stretch on the glute, okay, so the side, I'm just going to show you from this side. So it's sort of this vicinity here, this area. And then we will release out of that. We're going to knock the knees together and have the feet wide apart. And we're just going to cradle the elbows and we're just going to float the arms up and over the head. And this is a super relaxing position for the back here. Resting the knees together, wide feet. And then we're going to swap the configuration of the arms. So we're sort of wrapping the other way. And then we're just going to heel toe the feet together. So the soles of your feet are touching, but your knees are wide apart. And so if this feels like it's pinching your lower back, just revert back to the previous leg position. But what we're after here is neutral spine, maybe a light imprint if you need that extra support. And then the legs are out to the side. Try not to let them kind of collapse, okay? Sometimes the legs can just go too low and then the back sucks in and it defeats the object a little bit, but keep your spine nice and safe is what I'm trying to say. Okay, and then bring the legs back, tuck your knees into your chest and have a rock from side to side. So, you know, everyone's different and there's not a one size fits all. So some people can do certain moves and it's the loveliest thing in the world, and for others it's the exact opposite. So you've just got to listen to your body. And then we're going to roll over onto our sides, ease ourselves up nice and gently, and we'll find a comfortable sitting position. I'm going to use that now to raise my seat. So we are sitting with crossed legs if you can. Now if you've defaulted to the normal position, swap it over. Okay, so just how does that feel? Does it feel really weird? Might feel a little bit weird. We're going to place our hands on our knees and then we're just going to do a few swirls. And then we're going to swirl the other way. And then interlace your fingers, but also the weird way, okay? And we're going to press, we're pressing, you're scooping, C-curve in the spine, big burst open, TP fingertips behind you and lengthening your front spine. Try not to scrunch in the shoulders, so keep it nice and open at the front without compressing at the back. And then spread your wings, palms together.